let's do this. I wanted to discuss something, and I've been working a theory kind of over the weekend that revolves around all of the crimes against children cases that we see. I don't recall seeing one today, but we've definitely seen them a lot. We'd seem to not be able to escape it, to be honest with you. But I wonder how we've gotten to this point where it is so prevalent and everything, it's not everything, but every court seems to be dealing with this almost on a daily basis where somebody does something bad to a child. Barbara confirmed none today. Good. I didn't think there was. Just other stupidity. But I got to think about how we went there, and I have a theory, I have a hypothesis, and you might agree or disagree, but this is where I'm at with it. Who remembers these things? Raise your hand in the chat. Put a 1 in the chat if you're old enough to remember missing kids on milk cartons. I most certainly am. But this was a thing that definitely popped up in the 1980s. And I would argue that it is a basis, or at least a starting point, for where we are at now. And follow along with me because it's a little bit of a journey. But so many things that we do in society start off with good intentions. And I think the intention here was these kids are missing, everybody buys milk, let's put them on a milk carton. And this actually started, I think it was in Iowa, was the first one. It was a local dairy who knew of this local kid who was missing and put him on a milk carton. And then that got notoriety and it went national and became a thing. But I think what we ended up doing, I think that was the start of shifting risk and not necessarily in a good place. Because let's think about what happened as we were starting this. So you've got the 80s and you've got a kid that goes missing and then suddenly everybody thinks that's a good idea. So they put it on their milk cartons, but it went beyond that. You would start to see it on boxes for pizza, for example. You go to the local pizza place and they would have the missing children on the boxes. You'd see it on the side of trucks where they would put faces of missing children. And along that same time, you also had John Walsh. I think his first name was John, the guy who did America's Most Wanted. It was Adam Walsh, I believe was his son, who went missing, and that became a national thing. And then he went on to do America's Most Wanted, where he's calling out missing children and criminals and all this kind of stuff. And I would argue that what began to happen was this shift towards fear. And the milk carton thing, honestly, kind of fell apart anyways, fairly quickly, because what happened there was they realized, the milk industry did, that they could get a write-off on their taxes because it was an advertisement cost. So they were throwing kids up on these milk cartons right and left because there was a tax break for it. So it kind of diluted the whole thing anyways. And the truth of the matter is that if a child who's abducted is going to be killed, 67% of them are killed within the first 3 days, or excuse me, the first 3 hours. I take that back, 3 hours. And I believe it's like 40% of them are killed within the first hour. So the amount of time that it takes to get these kids on a milk carton, if they haven't been found by the time they're on the milk carton, the odds were they were already gone, unfortunately. So really all it did, well, I would argue that the concept was great and it was noble, I think it just created more and more fear in people and created an issue that didn't necessarily exist, at least not in a major amount. The truth of it is, when you look at the statistics, it's less than 1% of child abductions actually happen from people that the children didn't know. The vast, vast, vast majority of them come from a friend or a family member, and usually it's a custody dispute is where it happens. That's the majority of them. So this stranger danger movement that came off of this and everything else was really in a knee-jerk reaction to something that was, in the grand scheme of things, a very minor problem. But along the same time as this was ramping up, the stranger danger, the John Walsh on TV, pushing the crimes and showing off these missing children and talking about those cases and the milk cartons and the pizza boxes. Along that same time, we start to develop the internet, we start to develop gaming, and this excuse to move kids indoors. Let's give them something else to play with, where we've gotten to the point now where it is, you can't have your children outside unattended and have law enforcement drive by without law enforcement looking twice and going, what's going on here? And that's sad, because not only do you not have your kids getting out there and touching grass and, playing with other children and whatnot, it's almost become criminalized to let them be outside. But then I would argue that since we've done that, what have we opened up? Well, with the advent of the internet, we've taken what could potentially be a local issue, where in a community maybe you have a predator or two predators that might be known to people, so you know to avoid them and whatnot. And now you've opened it up globally so that your children are now not only worried about Weird Steve 2 blocks down. Sorry, Steve, I had to pick a name. But they're now susceptible to people everywhere, because we worked ourselves up in the 80s and the 90s into this frenzy about how dangerous it is for children. So we move them indoors, and then we still need to give them things to pacify them or whatnot. And the internet comes along, so we put them on the internet. And now there are predators everywhere that have easy access to your children. And I think that it is this unfortunate series of events that has led us to this point where there is so much of this crime, because ultimately we've made it easy for them. We've created this lane where if they have such predilections, they've got easy access to so many, and they can vet them. It's not just driving up and going, "Hey kid, do you want a lollipop?" It's now they can spend time kind of courting the child online and figuring out if they're a good candidate or not to exploit. I don't know what the answer is. I was just thinking over the weekend about how did we get to this place, and I started replaying the events of the last few decades in my mind and how things have changed and how things have evolved. And I would argue that, again, it's just a series of unfortunate events where you've got this movement away from being outside because everybody is riled up into this scared frenzy that really had no actual basis. And that comes along at the same time as the internet and gaming and all those things. And now here we are. Hey, thanks for watching this clip from TCF Overtime, the 4th hour of our daily live show where we discuss the happenings of the court that we saw during the day and other law news. If you like this video, please do leave it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Leave us a comment, let us know what you thought. You can join us live every weekday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, right here on this channel.